Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. Lordy, lordy, the more that I research, the clearer the picture becomes. I got another one of these Phoenix journals in the mail, Privacy in a Fishbowl. You can get these online at used bookstores. Spiral to Economic Disaster, Volume 2. Phoenix Journal. Just one little paragraph I want to read from this book before I begin my book review on another book. You ones. This would be Hanton speaking in the Phoenix Journal. You ones, he's speaking to the people, seem to require earthquakes, burning bushes, and earth death, and phenomena from the heavens to even blink thy eyes. We shall see that which gets thine attention. So apparently, Hanton, speaking from channeled material in this book, all these Phoenix journals, says that the heavens have to send earthquakes and natural disasters, catastrophes to get our attention. Other than that, we turn a blind eye to what's going on in the world. We refuse to believe what we see. We refuse to believe what we hear. I guess we even refuse to feel what we feel. So if you continue doing research, and as it says in the Bible, seek and ye shall find, ask and ye shall receive, people who get inquisitive and notice something is amiss and start looking into it, apparently things start unfolding. You set your brain to work. The mechanisms have, I guess, all kind of crazy forces in the universe to bring the information to you and me. Isn't that interesting? If you start looking into stuff and asking why, it starts to show up. And in this book, Hanton says, the heavens have to send earthquakes and disasters and droughts and floods and chaoses just to get our attention. Is that the case? Just an interesting perspective. Apparently, we have an epidemic going on planet Earth. Apathy. People don't care. People don't want to know. Intentional apathy. Sticking their heads in holes like ostriches. I've talked to people at the parking lot, and I was filming some sky spraying, and they go, "What are you looking at up there?" I said, "Well, I'm taking a picture of the sky spraying." And they look up, "Oh, that's nothing. That's just exhaust from the planes. Nothing to worry about here." And they're painting the entire sky pasty white with chemicals. Well, anyways, if you've been paying attention, we now know that they're intentionally dumping chemicals in the sky and using other kinds of weapons to bring us fires and disasters and smart meters on the back of houses to start fires, promoting terrorism, sustainability, and all kinds of propaganda about economic collapse and so much more, trying to promote a global world order and also promoting anti-Christian information. And even apparently the Sanhedrin, like the Jewish religious leaders, like a Congress, the Sanhedrins, the same people who had apparently got together and had a meeting and called for Jesus Christ to be crucified. Well, anyways, they're now calling on, and you can look this up, for President Trump and the United States government to start clamping down and creating some legislation, some laws, to make it a crime to talk about Jewish people or Zionism or being anti-globalist and all of this. Like in Europe, it's already illegal. YouTube sent me a notice that one of my videos was banned all over Europe because of laws, and they've restricted a lot of my other videos concerning Zionism. So I suspect sooner or later they will get around to getting the legislation passed to actually make it a crime, probably confiscating books from people's homes like the book 1984, and probably doing some horrible things to human beings who want to continue to believe that Jesus was the Savior. And apparently, my research is further indicates clearer and clearer that these Illuminati, Freemasonic types, Zionist, Kabbalah, Jewish elite, and probably not all Jewish people, and apparently involving a lot of people who are not Jewish who have joined these satanic churches or satanic cults. But they're into this cult of Moloch, the owl. The little tiny owl perched on one of the ones on the dollar bill. You can look it up on the internet. Look at your dollar bill. Just look at the top right-hand side where the one is, and look on one of the ones. You'll see the tiny little owl. And the Washington, D.C. street plan is in the shape of a gigantic owl. And apparently in California at the Bohemian Grove, where a lot of our elite leaders meet, they throw a baby in under a gigantic owl in a burning fire, called the cremation of care. So the cult of Moloch. And then the cult of Baal is similar and also mentioned in the Old Testament of the Bible, the cult of Moloch and the cult of Baal. Did you know that? And the cult of Balaam, another demon god, all mentioned in the Old Testament. I'm reading Jeremiah because No More News, is it Adam Green? And I've been watching him and I take notes and look this stuff up. And I've been reading Jeremiah in the Bible. So I need to get that information out there. So much to do, so little time. So the cult of Moloch, the cult of Baal, and then they were putting the archway of Baal in New York and London. Looked that up on the internet. Later on through UNESCO, I found out they were putting 1,000 archways to Baal, the devil, the demon, all over the world. So apparently, globalism equals the Jewish Zionism, Kabbalist, synagogue of Satan, sorcery, witchcraft. The people who control our world are trying to bring about a cult of witchcraft. They've been around quite a while. So anyways, I was reading this book that I wanted to make a video on. And I'm read enough already to make a video. But it mentioned the cult of Diana and these other peoples whose names are in the book I'm going to read from. The Anglo-American establishment. It talks about how the leadership in Britain and the world have conspired to take control of the United States and countries all over the world, Africa, India. The Anglo-American establishment. There is indeed groups of men belonging to secret societies who are plotting for a global world order, a bad day for the world, a huge depopulation event. This book here by a famous author, Carol Quigley. So I was reading it and I said, well, I need to do another book review on another book before I do this book review because it'll make more sense. But it's talking about these elite peoples and their families and descendants over hundreds of years, all inheriting their parents' power positions and wealth and intermarrying, the Anglo-American establishment. So apparently Britain, after the Declaration of Independence in 1776, and America became free, the 13 colonies, later on expanded. Now we have 50 states and some territories. But apparently in the last couple hundred years there have been numerous attempts, couple of wars, many presidents assassinated, to regain control of the United States of America. And apparently a lot of these people are into these cults of Moloch, cults of Baal, mentioned in the Old Testament, believe it or not, cults of Balaam, and in this book it mentions one of these people being a member of the cult of Diana. So I said to myself, who's the cult of Diana? You know me, I looked it up. You can go online and look it up. Got some creepy pictures here. So it was actually pretty weird stuff to look at. Look at that D. Just saying, this stuff is just too much to believe. These pictures you find on the cult of Diana. Look at the throne. It makes you wonder about this crazy stuff they're bringing us in this reality. So, the book I'm going to read from is Bloodlines of the Illuminati, because I was reading this thing and I noticed the names of the people who are controlling our world. People who get into the presidency, get into the parliament in Britain, leadership positions in India, Africa, all over the world, coming from these people who belong to these cults. It's in the books. So is Hanton correct, Phoenix Journal? Will it take earthquakes? Will the sun have to be darkened for 3 days? Will it take a worldwide catastrophe to get people to wake up? I wonder. Bloodlines of the Illuminati, Fritz Springmeier. I'm not trying to take credit for his work. Please go find his books. Go watch his current videos when he talks on lectures, and try to find his current website. He has suffered largely to be where he is as a researcher, and learned a lot and shared a lot in these big thick books. He's published a lot. I think he even wound up in prison for a few years. He was accused, I guess, according to what I heard, robbing a bank. Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Anyways, he's still speaking. He's still around. And the family that's mentioned in this book, the Anglo-American establishment, was the Astor family. And that's what I'm going to read about. Because there's just a lot of information, and you know I pre-read the material. And so I'm going to try to get through this entire chapter on the Astor family. And just some interesting things I found out about the Astor family. Apparently they were created a lot of things like the Wardolph Hotel, Astoria, the city. Apparently Astoria, Long Island, Astoria, North Carolina. The hotbeds for these occult groups, satanic organizations, located all over the world. And of course the big lodges of Freemasons in our downtown cities, and the obelisk, the phallic symbol for Osiris and his son Horus, the all-seeing eye on the back of the dollar bill, and his wife Isis. We've all heard about the threat of Isis. You think they use these names just as a coincidence or an accident? If you do, like Hanton said in the Phoenix Journal, what the heck is it going to take to wake people up? So I go online periodically and try to find these hardcovers instead of going online and getting the free ones. 120 Phoenix Journals in the 1980s and 1990s. Get the free ones online. Download all the PDFs while you can. Before, like 1984, a lot of this stuff becomes banned, and legislation passed and people get arrested. And apparently if they can't arrest people or stop it, they have assassination squads. This is serious business. You think? So according to this book, the Astor family, the Astor bloodline contents. The difficulty in researching the family, the origin of the family, a quick overview of the power and pride of the Astor family. John Jacob Astor, the first. His German heritage, his Masonic career, his wealth, his positions of influence. So a lot of people who come from Germany, remember, like a lot of places all over the world, Spain, France, Britain, they were originally Jewish people who took Christian-sounding names to get into positions of power. That's called a crypto Jew. And I'm finding out more and more, a lot of these families that are in power in the United States and other positions of fame, movie stars and other leaders, ambassadors and corporate CEOs, a lot of them seem to be, from my research, crypto Jews. And even Tex Mars sent me a newsletter once that said he researched most of the international corporations, and they actually had Jewish CEOs. So that does tell you something. They wouldn't hire Christian CEOs to run those corporations, generally, because you probably couldn't get a Christian to do with these Zionist Jewish people into this Kabbalah, cult of Diana, cult of Baal, cult of Moloch. These insiders into these secret societies who control our world apparently belong to the synagogue of Satan, as it says in Revelation 2.9 and 3.9. And according to the Sanhedrin, who sent a letter, that would be the Congress of the Jewish state, the Jewish people worldwide, to President Donald Trump to pass some legislation to start making it illegal to talk anything declared anti-Semitic, which would include Zionism, the Kabbalah, synagogue of Satan. So think about their logo, fraternity and liberty and freedom for all. So I suspect if you can't beat them, they want us to join them. And I guess that means the synagogue of Satan is battling the world of decency and God's laws and Christianity and other religions. So it is a war against we the people all over the world. And if you look at my videos and pay attention, it seems the evidence keeps coming out to show that. And this is series number 9, part 2. So the first one I made was probably back in the latter part of 2013, maybe January 2014. I didn't go look up the date. And if you notice, I am downloading my videos. Every couple years I try to do that because they do get lost in obscurity. Apparently a lot of people don't want to go on rickmiracle.com or on the information site of YouTube Rick Miracle channel and make a list of the videos and go through the topics. So I do it as a courtesy to use my brain and have some kind of rhyme and reason for the sequences of which I continue to download and dispense the information, so that it does pop up in your inbox as a new video. I have to actually delete the old video, and that wipes out the comments and wipes out all the view counts on my channel. So if it looks like my view count is nosediving, it's because I download 2 videos every day, which means I have to delete them first and lose all the comments and all the viewer counts. And I am cut and pasting all that data into a book, which is going to be quite an amazing book if you think about it. It's like 250 authors and over maybe 700 videos. And all the comments from the viewers posted on there. And a lot of people are intelligent thinking people and have different perspectives. So I'm not editing it out that anybody who says anything negative is deleted. I might take out some stuff where people say things that are non-relevant or stupid. Apparently a lot of trolls out there. So anyways, Astor in Fritz Springmeier's book, Bloodline of the Illuminati. So German heritage, Masonic career, descendants, William Backhouse Astor, John Jacob Astor III, Ava Alice Muriel Astor, some branches of the Astor bloodline, the Chandler branch, the connections to the Roosevelts. President Roosevelt, the recent one. The role of the Astors in Illuminati organizations. So I'm into this book, The Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Apparently the Astors and many other names you're going to recognize are in this book. And they're in this famous book, The Anglo-American Establishment, the people who conspire behind the scenes and the things they've done, names and banks and a lot of other things you will recognize. So if I just read this, you would be less inclined to connect it to the cults, the Illuminati, Freemasons, cult of Diana, cult of Baal, cult of Moloch, and all the symbols they put right in our faces all over the country. TV and city squares, movies, TV shows. All these people having, I guess, kind of witchcraft organizations. And like Jordan Maxwell said in a recent video, as a sidebar, he was talking to, I think, Jeff Rentz. And he said, oh, yeah, here in the hills around Beverly Hills, Hollywood, human and child sacrifice is going on every day. Now, what if that's true? What if Hanton is right? What the heck's it going to take for we the people to wake up? Information on the Astor family in general, the difficulty of researching the family. So I'm going to try to minimize some of this information and just read my highlighted sentences so I can get to the really informative information that we need to know. Most of the material put out on the Astors shows the unmistakable mark of distortion by writers and historians, giving information in line with what the Astors wanted the public to get. Books on the Astors contain both believable and unbelievable material, fact and fiction. So of course these people, when they do get autobiographies written about them and other material, the things that they're really involved in, like the opium trade and so much more, they don't want the public to know. And the cults, the secret societies they go to, the sacrificing of humans, the manipulations of leaders of countries, the wars they start, and the wealth that they have stolen from we the people all over the world, and the suffering that they have caused is almost endless if somebody were to try to document it all. Boggles the mind. John Jacob Astor, the first prominent Astor, was a notorious liar, according to Fritz Springmeier. And you can go see him talk on some current videos. I highly encourage it. And even some of his older videos. Quite interesting information. And again, if you watch enough of this stuff, like my 600 plus videos, and do any kind of research, it'll probably just start falling in your lap like it does mine, because apparently there is some kind of connection to the higher realm. You know, we have left brains and right brains. The left brain operates at a slower frequency, like the frequency of me talking right now, the picture you're watching. That's left brain activity. The books behind me, the shelves, the pictures. Your normal consciousness, left brain. Right brain is the dreaming state. Something connected to the other world. And they don't want us to use it, so they put fluoride in the water to calcify our pineal glands. It's almost like our little radio receiver to the other dimension. Did you know that? Go look it up. He was a notorious liar, known on occasion to invent romantic tales for the edification of people who annoyed him with questions. So these people do have an arrogant attitude, no doubt about that. Next, page 24. And again, you can see I've read all of this. The Astors have invented various origins for themselves. Without access to their secret Illuminati genealogies, we have to draw the best conclusions we can about their origins without 100% certainty. The people of Waldorf reported that in 1692, a Frenchman named Astorga, who spoke Italian, had been wandering for several days, came to that area, then a duchy of Baden, and married a local girl, Anna Margarita Eberhard. The original Astor was certainly from some occult group and has been called a Huguenot and a Waldenese. He was escaping religious persecution in Savoy, then under the Spanish Habsburgs, now part of Italy. So apparently back then in the 1500s and 1600s, the Inquisition, there was a lot of turmoil for the people practicing witchcraft. The Inquisition. The authorities were out to get them. Were the authorities correct to do that back then? And if you talk to the Church of Satan, they would say no. And maybe that's what it is. It really is a battle between these people who worship God and want to be a decent human being, and these people who rebelled against God and are part of the synagogue of Satan and all these demonic demons and these cults I've been mentioning. Boggles the mind, I keep saying. The area he came to in southwest Germany was strongly into witchcraft and had seen 3,229 people executed for witchcraft between 1561 and 1670. So I'm saying, and I think I have plenty of evidence to support what I'm saying, that in the Encyclopedia Judaica, I've gone over this, I've read it right from the pages of the Encyclopedia Judaica, 1973 edition, published in Israel, that historically, for the Jewish people, Kabbalah was part of their religious culture. And the Kabbalah, I've gone over it, is clearly mysticism, witchcraft. You can go look up these images on Yahoo image site and click each image and it gives you a website. Look at all the New Age symbols. The six-pointed star, which is on the Israeli flag. So this is a simple Kabbalah symbols. That's all I looked up. So a wealth of information here, if anybody doubts it. You're talking about mysticism, magic, witchcraft, sorcery. Is the religion Babylonian demons that apparently is part of the group that controls our world. So anyways, it says here the area is near the Black Forest and is an area where the cult of Diana has been historically strong. So that's where I got that. That red line that I highlighted there. So I was reading this book. I don't mean to keep repeating myself. These people are mentioned, the Anglo-American establishment, who controlled the banking systems and gold mining, diamond mining, and overthrowed governments to take over resources, and are part of the people trying to bring us a global world order. Their names are in here, all our activities. Carol Quigley is a thorough, well-known, respected author. The cult of Diana is mentioned here. You can make your own assessment on what you think. So I'm reading this book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, saying to myself, oh, who's the cult of Diana? So I went and looked it up. Events also suggest the family came from Savoy, for later when John Jacob came back to Europe for the first time, he went to 3 places: to Paris to visit Albert Gallatin, descendant of the Italian Black Gullup family of Roman Consul Caelius, to Waldorf, and then thirdly to northern Italy, Genoa, Rome, Naples. He didn't travel to Spain. Later, William Astor, his great-grandson, was made ambassador to Italy by President Arthur. So these people into these cults, remember the cults control our governments. All the presidents come from one or another of these secret societies, like George Bush Jr. and the Skull and Bones. Franklin Roosevelt, Masonic organizations, Benjamin Franklin from some of these Freemasonic and other occult organizations. But they don't teach you that. The Hellfire Club. So they do, and it is a family tradition, they do intermarry. So these people, by default, get put into positions of power over and over again. According to my research, and when I started this, if you go back and watch my earlier videos, I did not know the answer. And I went over all kinds of different topics. It took me a long time to get a clearer picture. That's why I go back, and this is series number 9, and I will be going back to many books and making part 2s or part 3s or part 5s or part 11s, depending on where I'm at. I'm not always just going to move forward and go up to 251 and 258. That's not a priority, although I will continue to go in that direction. But I'll also go back and make reviews and new videos on books I've already gone over, because I've learned a lot since then. So it gets to be quite a complicated conversation. But if you watch enough of the videos and you use your thinking cap and take some notes, you can figure it out. The name Astorga comes from the De Astorga. So Astorga is long for Astorga, is an important city in Spain, and the counts of Astorga were named De Astorga. Isn't that interesting? So these people with the castles and high positions of power in ancient cities were named after these people today, although they kind of changed their names slightly, modernized them, shortened them, Christianized them, so they don't appear to come from the dark dungeons of the ancient occult witchcraft organizations or out of the Shahendran or the Jewish realm, who were into the Kabbalah and into these mystery religions, which is why they had so many problems all over Europe, banishing the Jews from all countries in Europe in the 15 and 1600s. And they had fled to Russia and Poland and Denmark until 1600, when they executed the king and started to allow the Jewish people back into Britain, who took over the parliament, the banking systems, and eventually they retook over after the Declaration of Independence, the American banking system in the 1800s, and they lost control. Then in 1913 they got it again, and of course they've crashed our economic system 8 or 9 times since then. And so they're playing us for fools. And it looks like we have a bad day coming in our future. All right, back to the book. The name Astorga came from De Astorga, I said that. There is a written record of the Astorga family back there in 1067, 1,000 years ago almost. However, the Catholic Diocese of Astorga, which includes the entire Spanish province of Leon, was created in 344. Wow, the Astorga name goes back to 344? 1,800 years ago? Crazy? Now you know who's in charge of everything. These ancient families. Into the Kabbalah, mystery religion of Babylon, Satanism, cult of Baal, cult of Moloch, cult of Diana, Baalim, and many other names. Osiris, Horus, Isis, Lucifer. Make no mistake about it. The name is most likely meaning is Astarte. Well, that's another deity god. Astarte, like the cult of Diana. So look up Astarte, mother of the occult. Wow, the Astor family came from the name, the mother of the occult. Her name is also Samaris. There's another one of those Babylonian trinity, Nimrod's the sun god, and Samaras, the moon, Tamaras, the morning star. Lucifer's known as the morning star. In Egypt, these gods were called Osiris, Isis, and Horus. So through the ages, here's what happened. They just used different names for these deities. 100 years would pass and you go into a different country. People speak a different language, so they kind of try to normalize the name. The pictures and statues of Isis and Horus were renamed by the Roman Catholic Church as the Virgin Mary and the Christ Child. The variant of Astarte, or goddess Astera, is believed by occultists to rule the coming golden age. So again, now you know who's behind this coming golden age, and it's not going to be golden for we the people. Make no mistake about that. They do plan on a huge depopulation event, and they have advanced technologies to monitor and watch everything we do, and probably all kinds of technological devices to take people out, targeting them with directed energy beams or microwave weapons or toxins or chemicals or different frequencies. And it's all in the news these days. It's coming out. No wonder they have to pass legislation to stop people from talking about it and associating it with the state of Israel, who is calling on the United States Congress recently, sending a letter to President Donald Trump, according to a video I was watching on the No More News channel and other research. I always go look it up. I have a printout of the documents here. The Illuminati Medicis of Tuscany were attached to Austria. They spell it, another version of Astor. Made their motto, Li Temple Vivant, which means the interrupted golden age will be restored. You can go find this book yourself. I'm not even done with the first page here. The interrupted golden age will be restored. The Astorgas moved to the Spanish Empire expanded. As the Battle of Lepanto, the Spanish Habsburgs dominated the Mediterranean and controlled Savoy and Sicily. This explains why Emmanuel de Astorga, 1680 to 1750, was a Sicilian baron. Let's not forget President Donald Trump named his son Baron Trump. And I'm sure that's not an accident. And we have information showing us that, even pictures of Donald Trump on a coin comparing him to King Cyrus, who was the last king to help the Zionist Jewish people, apparently into the Kabbalah, sorcery, rebuild King Solomon's temple the second time. Also, we find Nora Astorga becoming a famous Nicaraguan revolutionary. In Spain, Astorga is such an important term that the Spanish Prince of Asturias, the people of Asturias, means the Crown Prince of Spain. Waldorf's coven, they call witches covens, and it takes 13 witches to make up a coven. So that's why the number 13 is important for many reasons, but you can look and see, go on Yahoo image site and look up witches 13 and occult 13, and you'll see all those pictures, and click the pictures and see the pages on the internet. plenty of information to show we're involved in witchcraft and sorcery. If people think that's a good thing, well, I guess they're going to get their just desserts when they leave. And like Hanton says in this book, it's going to have to move heaven and earth, earthquakes and hail and thunder to get the people's attention. That eventually, it says in this book I was reading, you don't want to make God angry, and apparently God is now angry. Oh my. And it says in the Bible that the Lord can stop the winds and stop the rain. So, you know, how much power do you people think that God has if God can create all the reality we see around us? Why are the evil forces allowed to exist at all? A lot of people ask. It does confuse us, but I'm confident there is a purpose. Maybe planet Earth is a big classroom and trying to separate the wheat from the chaff, as it says in the Bible. The good portion of the wheat versus the bad stuff, the dirt and bugs and stuff you don't want to eat, the wheat from the chaff. Maybe that pertains to human beings too. The good people from the not so good people, and the bad people go into the underworld, heaven or hell, whatever you want to call it, a fenced off imprisoned dimension. Some people say that Earth is now that particular dimension, and apparently if you want to get off this planet into a higher realm and a higher dimension, apparently you have to look into God's word and obey God's word as best you can. None of us are perfect, of course, but we can try. Waldorf's coven evidently had some important personages in witchcraft, and Johann Astor's family had power. Even prior to America, they knew how to take out competition. Jacob Astor's brother, Heinrich, had come over with the Hessians during the American Revolution. So these people have been busy in American affairs for a long time, and they know how to take out competition, just like President John Kennedy said he was going to expose them, and he was assassinated. The King of France was executed. The King of Britain was executed, along with many other people. And many other American presidents were executed. Many other people were killed. A lot of people slaughtered in the wars. So it says in this book, they know how to take out competition. It's not a fair game. So they came over during the American Revolution and developed quick control over the meat business in New York City area from both the Americans and the British. All that time in Europe, the Astor family had no chance to turn their occult powers into success. So imagine if people have developed excellent witchcraft powers. I wonder how that plays into events to take over corporations and control the world. Would they play nasty, mean games by destroying the stock market and the economy so people lose everything so they can take it all? Apparently they would, they could, and they have done it before, and they're going to do it again and again, as long as the people refuse to wake up. The power and class structure in Europe was rigid and gridlocked. The boundaries between peasant and aristocrat were solidly in place, and they were eliminating the middle class these days. It's in the news, it's common knowledge. So the family looked to the New World to transmit their position in the hierarchy into financial wealth and power. So make no mistake about it. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, these people were bloodthirsty, premeditated Satanists, worshiping demons and evil beings, and they've been doing it for 1,000 years, and probably 3,000 or 4,000 years. History is full of the documentation, if people want to look. And reading Jeremiah in the Old Testament, and all those videos I've made on the New Testament, I probably never had to do all of this research, going on 14, 15 years of my life. I could have just read the Bible and believed it, and I would have arrived at the same place. Isn't that interesting? But it's been an interesting trip going through all these books by all these brave authors, men and women throughout history. A lot of them losing their lives, certainly having their lives destroyed and being attacked. Even kings executed, presidents assassinated. All right, page 25. A quick overview of the power and pride of the Astor family. Bloodline. John Jacob Astor's descendants can be seen in the accompanying geological chart provided by this author. John Jacob Astor's descendants have a penchant for secrecy. They like to set up things to rule from behind the scenes. Of course. In contrast to some of the other top families, the Astors have preferred not to sit on boards of corporations, which they controlled. Hoyt Amadon had been a proxy for Vincent Astor and the other Astors, so they put up puppets to run things, like the presidents they've been putting in America, obviously not pulling all the strings or making all those decisions. It's all a planned event for our distraction and entertainment and deception, propaganda. Like a lot of the people on with videos that we watch on YouTube tell us, there's probably very little we actually see out there in the Main Street news and newspapers and stuff out of Congress that's actually the truth. We don't know what's really going on and what's planned, when the next 9/11 or World War will take place. It could be this afternoon. But things are being put in place, that's for sure. The Astor family also used Owen Litmore as their proxy for the opium trade, who in turn used Laura Speldman, who was founded by the Institute of Public Relations, the IPR. In 1890, a real estate expert calculated the Astors owned 1/20th of New York City real estate. After making their fortune while residing in the New York area, the Astors, by and large, have all gone to England. They still wield great financial power in the United States through proxies. Just like the Rothschilds, DuPonts, and Rockefellers, the Astors always set one of their Astor males at the head of the entire family. This headship is passed down as a birthright within the different branches of the family, just as any king passes on his throne. Forum magazine, November 1889, 100 plus years ago, commented that authorities estimate the Astors' worth to be $300,000, but that figure had to be an understatement. Today, my estimate, according to Fritz Springmeier, the Astors are worth about $40 billion. However, most of the wealth of the top 13 bloodlines is hidden, so that the ties to who owns it is difficult to track. Some of it sits in Swiss bank accounts. One of the many foundations that the Astors created was the Vincent Astor Foundation, which is controlled from England by the Astors and has in the range of 100 million tax-exempt dollars. The Vincent Astor Foundation has typically given to Catholic and Episcopalian needs, among other things. They also give money to agencies opposed to private ownership of guns. So we do know they want to remove the guns from we the people in the United States. They'll get around to it, besides passing legislation so we can't talk about these things. Books will be confiscated, like the book 1984, and certain movies you probably watched. They give money to New York's public library, Imagine how much influence that gives them when the library is receiving regular help for general support. A 1971 foundation directory states that Vincent Astor Foundation has its present emphasis on preventing juvenile delinquency. And Fritz Springmeier says, "Why don't I trust the Astors?" And foundation financial help to law enforcement. The Waldorf Foundation states that its purpose is the promotion of mutual understanding and the diffusion of knowledge and culture among the United States and of the dominions and colonies and countries of the Commonwealth, i.e. communism, global world order. They use nice sounding words, so you have to be alert to that. This sounds very similar to the public statement of purpose that Secretive Pilgrim Society has given out to those who inquire about them. So all these secret societies, including the Freemasons, have all this false front propaganda out there that they're donating money to children's hospitals and all these things. It's all a cover. What they give is a tiny portion of what they take. All right, to give an idea how much power the Astor family wields, let's look at just one of the single example of the Astor and of the many Astor men who have power and wealth. Let's use Vincent Astor, now deceased, who was a member of 41 private clubs, as our example. Vincent Astor was director of these enterprises, which you'll probably recognize many of them. American Express, Atlantic Fruit and Sugar, Cuban Dominican Sugar, National Park Bank of New York, Grand Northern Railroad, City and Suburban Homes, Chase Manhattan, Rockefeller Bank, Mercantile Marine, Western Union Telegraph, and oh my. So here I am reading this book, and I said, if I just read this book and mention the Astor family and all these other names I'm going to mention, people just probably wouldn't get the impact. But if you watch this video, then I do that video. So this is Series 9, Part 2. Here's some other corporations that they're the director of. Weekly Publications, New York County Trust Company, National Museum, Central Railroad, the New York Zoological Society, and the National Institute of Secret Sciences, Society of Sciences, I guess. Notice that these last two are heavily involved in the spread of the evolution theory, while suppressing vast scientific evidence that contradicts their theories. So a lot of people will readily recognize and admit the evolutionary theory doesn't stand up, especially when you consider all the ancient monuments all over the planet and the Great Flood. There was an advanced civilization before this one. So how would evolutionary theory even fit into that scenario? William Waldorf Astor, owner of the Pall Mall Gazette, the Observer, and the Pall Mall magazine, so they're heavily into the media. The London Times was largely controlled by the Astors, and since 1922 they have owned this major source of British news. And of course they own all the media in the United States, so they're feeding us what they want to, and they're using those medias for propaganda and training, making us believe things that are not true. Like 911, for example. That was a big cover-up, inside job. Just go look up pictures of Building 7, never hit by a plane free-falling. Plenty of evidence, but what's it going to take for people to wake up? The DuPonts and the Rockefellers also have some major businesses where they too own blatant large holdings. So you know why they need the corporations. to put all this billions and trillions of dollars, all these bloodlines, these elite families, to control the world and protect their wealth. And apparently, in this age of enlightenment and people becoming more intelligent and educated, they are probably becoming more and more exposed as they more and more want to hide their true identities, turning over the power from the governments over to the corporations, even the police corporations, investigations, to be their police goon squads to crack down on we the people so they can continue their control over our reality. And they're into these demonic gods and cults, and they're into sacrificing humans. So apparently these gods and demons can do their bidding with their magic. It says it in here, if you just want to interpret it plain enough. That's what it is. And apparently they don't want people to believe in God or Jesus or whatever other religion you might be in, like the Islam religion, because they know that God and angels and things like that exist, and they know that power is strong and people could protect themselves. It says that in the Bible. All right. Since 1922, they have owned this major source of British news. And the DuPonts and Rockefellers, as we already know. On the corner of 33rd Street and 5th Avenue, the site later became the site of the Empire State Building. The original Waldorf Astoria Hotel for the Astor, the first letters in the word is Astor, was built by William Waldorf. The hotel opened on March 1893. It was described as the ultimate in snub appeal. Later, two Astor cousins built the Astoria, another even taller elite hotel in New York, which was opened in 1897. And apparently they're having some elite conference right now for the world on the climate change issue, and all these elites are flocking there for this climate change meeting as if they really care about us, in their jets. And there was a press release in a newspaper of the many jets, private jets they were using. So it's all about consolidation of power and using these false flag news events and threats of sustainability and climate change so we the people will submit because we believe all the lies. Of course, like many of the other elite families, the Astors have their main property to get away and relax. We all know that George Bush's and their families have the properties in Maine. And I'm from Maine, and I can tell you a lot of the street names are Masonic street names, even Masonic Boulevard and Freemason Lane, and there's signs up everywhere. Apparently, Maine is a huge occult state, the leadership anyways. Makes you wonder. I wondered about a lot of things I saw up there, including when I went out to Santa Fe. That was a spooky place, not too far from Roswell or Dulce underground base where apparently alien beings are, and other places I traveled when I went out there, and the Hopi Reservation. A lot of spooky things in this country and the world, I'm sure. Pine Gap in Australia. These people are everywhere, and they're into this secret occult and other kinds of knowledge to and using that stuff for their power and their control. In 1894, John Jacob wrote a novel, A Journey in Other Worlds. So John Jacob Astor wrote a novel, A Journey in Other Worlds. You see what I'm saying? UFOs, aliens, demons, beings. A journey in other worlds from these occult people. You can connect the dots if you want to. If you don't want to, I guess, like Hanton says, God can move heaven and earth and clouds and mountains, but some people just don't want to see what's real. Where he describes a society which operates, you're not going to believe what's in this book, on the idea of conserving energy. He wrote a book, A Journey in Other Worlds, which describes a society in 1894 which operates on the idea of conserving energy. Strange how the elite like to promote conservation among us cattle, according to Fritz Springmeier. Colonel Jack Astor, one of the world's most powerful men, was among those who went down with the Titanic. Fritz Springmeier says, to his honor, he didn't have to sacrifice his life, but did. If he had been a scoundrel, he could have chased a woman and her children from some lifeboat. But we don't know what happened on the Titanic. Many sermons have been preached on the significance of the Titanic, and I personally am beginning to feel that God laid it on the hearts of so many of his ministers to understand that the Titanic was a judgment upon the pride of the world. So does God intervene in our reality? I think he does. Whatever God is. I believe the spiritual world is absolutely real. I've gone over a lot of books about the shamans and the people in Hawaii, the kahunas, the Mexican shamans, Peruvian shamans, the Hopis. And so there's no doubt that all of these ancient stories are probably have a lot of truth in them, and that we are spiritual beings in this physical reality. But the question is, why? And should we be here and ignore the situation where other people are being sacrificed and killed every day? And if we do, what's the old saying? When will they come for us? More specifically, it was a warning to the New World Order elite. Their financial power is unchecked. Myers and others have noted the Astors are above the law. The top 13 families don't obey the law. They are the law. The Astors may have Illuminati kings and princes in their ranks. They may have dozens of billions of assets, yet it will all be nothing when they face their Creator at judgment. So nobody gets off of planet Earth alive. So concerning oneself only with wealth and power probably is not going to be a good day when you get across the veil into the invisible reality, the spiritual world, which apparently is more real than this molecule and atom world. Part 2, John Jacob Astor I. The original founder of the Astor fortune was John Jacob Astor, 1763 to 1848, who was born in Waldorf, Duchy of Baden, Germany, from a Jewish bloodline. The Jewish origin have been hidden, so they don't want that out there. And a lot of these families in control of our planet today come from these occult Jewish bloodlines, and their families have been around for a long time, or they wouldn't be there. They don't allow competition. They have magic and the occult. Trust me, no decent, honest person is going to rise to that level without the force of all these demonic entities at their side destroying that person. So it is dangerous to talk about these things. And quite a number of various ideas of the Astor heritage have been put into circulation. All right, back to the book here. So his father, Johann Astor, was but a butcher. So was John Jacob, who was educated and selected to establish the House of Astor in America. He quit the family business at 16 to go to America via a layover in England. Piercing the truth together from details, it appears that his satanic authority was already in place. Remember, these people are into the Kabbalah cult, cults of Moloch, cults of Baal, Satanism, synagogue of Satan. It says it in the Bible, numerous places, all these words. Lucifer. face to face with the Backhouse family in England. Of course, the biographers make it sound like John Jacob Astor left Germany for himself rather than his family. Michael Astor gives a glimpse of John Jacob's mission. He concentrated almost entirely on building a fortune, on escaping the poverty of his childhood, and establishing some financial position for his family in America. So imagine making a deal with the devil. You've seen the movies, people sign in blood. Apparently it's real. I wouldn't recommend it. If you think the devil keeps his word, you have to get out of this planet. You're going to wind up in a burning inferno for eternity. I'm not kidding. There's something to this reality. We're here for a reason. And people need to pay attention to what's going on in this propaganda and effort to bring us under a world global control. And even Israel Shahendran trying to get America to pass legislation to make speaking about these people and the Zionism and their plans illegal. Can you imagine the crackdown by the governments? By the way, in Europe, it's already illegal. And one of my recent videos, they sent me a letter. I got to go over that they banned my video from a whole list of countries. John Jacob Astor leaves Germany for England and America. John Jacob Astor arrived in England and may well have been introduced to in England to British intelligence by his brother George. And I've gone over books already that pretty much confirm in my mind that these intelligence agencies are nothing but strong arms for these people who control our world. I've gone over books. I've got many other books about people, insiders, detailing this stuff. At any rate, he got involved in British intelligence, which has always been closely linked to Freemasonry. That's what it says here. So here you go. You got all these Freemasonic lodges in every town. You've got these national security and state security agencies, CIA, FBI types, and probably a lot of the men and women working for these organizations are not aware of all the intricate details going on behind the scenes. And a lot of them who find out either get killed, and some of them escape and write books. Some of them write books and don't allow those books to be published until after they're dead, for fear of their family or retirement. It's a very precarious situation we're in right now. And they're setting up all these advanced technologies and even encouraging, I was watching one video, they're encouraging children to interact with these Siri, Echo, Google devices where they want your child to talk to this artificial intelligence. Oh my, can you imagine what they can do? People better not allow that to happen. Boggles the mind. Think about it. Turn your child over to this talking box. And you're already probably doing it if you're letting your kids watch the cartoons. Listen to the cartoons. Sit down and watch them. You'll be amazed at what those animated characters are telling your kids. Look at the Pokemon chips. And look how the kids look like Pokemon, and the graffiti in our city streets and industrial areas and buildings and bridges. And the stuff on TV. Go look at the cartoons your kids watch. You'll freak out and you'll turn it off. Guaranteed. You'll be amazed. You'll tell your friends, I've seen it. He spent time socially with the Backhouse family, which is an aristocratic family. So apparently these Jewish Kabbalistic cult people, this particular family, Astor, makes it to Britain, gets hooked up with these other witchcraft families, and gets sent to America with all kinds of money, power, influence, and the occult behind him to build a fortune. And they know how to get rid of competition. People die. There's some really bad stuff in this book. Apparently, they took over the fur trade. They dominated it by killing the competition. And even the people who were hunting, providing the furs, when they would bring in their furs to get paid, and they left, they wouldn't make it a couple blocks or a mile before some assassin was waiting for them to kill them to get the money back. It's in this material. What are you going to do? How do you suppose such a supposedly destitute young man could be accepted so easily into the backhouse social scene? This is not explained by modern biographers. John Jacob married Sarah Todd. So Todd's another name into the occult. I think I made a book review on, not a book review, but a video on John Todd on one of my live streaming series. And he was an insider into these witchcraft organizations. John Todd, go look him up. Plenty of material out there. Amazing material. And I'll have to re-release my live streaming if you haven't seen them, because if you don't go look for them, if you go on my channel and click Rick Miracle and look at the videos, you'll find the live streaming videos for 2 months before YouTube shut me down. There were some interesting videos. Me making videos live on documents that I had collected. So they married Sarah Todd. Jacob John's stepmother, Christina Barbara, is described as the perfect, cruel fairy tale stepmother. See the Collins bloodline for information on the Todd family. After 4 years, his brother George had then sent him to America to represent George's music company. His brother Henry met him when he arrived in 1784 at the age of 20 and introduced him to the occult world in New York City. So the occult world in New York City was alive and well. And of course, New York City is well known for the porn and so much decadent things going on, the mafia organizations. Oh, I'll bet it was pretty interesting back then to live in that environment. I've been down in the city of New York City and Times Square quite a bit when I was younger. My father worked in one of those buildings, like the 25th floor, facing the Times Square building. Thomas Backhouse and Company was a leading house in a lucrative fur trade. John Jacob Astor set out to bring the fur trade under his own control. There is a fact that must be faced. The Elites Committee of 300. So above these Astors and other people, these occult people, these people into these occults, these Jewish family members, these bloodlines, and not all Jewish people, they have to get the agreement from 300 other families, the Committee of 300, a secret legislative group of the Illuminati, decided that John Jacob Astor could expand into the fur trade and into the opium narcotics trade. And there's a book called Dope Inc., which I ordered the book. I should be getting it shortly. Dope Inc. shows that the Astor family was the first American family to get into the opium trade. And on a sidebar, after World War I, they were predominantly shipping Yiddish Jewish people from the Russian, German, Polish area into the United States. That's why Henry Ford wrote his books, The International Jew, The World's Foremost Problem. So they were shipping over thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million of these Yiddish Jews to America after World War I. 1918, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22. They had barracks all over Europe. They were training them, teaching them how to speak some English words, financing them, and their intent back then, in 1920, was to take over American businesses all across the country. Baseball, the liquor industry, everything. publishing, creating Hollywood, movie theaters, all financed and forced upon us by secret societies and banksters behind the scenes. Can you imagine? No wonder Henry Ford, the automaker, bought the Dearborn Independent newspaper and started publishing this. Nobody else would. He risked his life and limb in his business. They almost destroyed him. All right, so the book Dope Inc., which I ordered, shows that the Astor family was the first American family to get into the opium trade. And apparently the Kennedy family, the higher-ups, not John Kennedy. John Kennedy, like many elites, sometimes recognize that something's wrong and try to come clean, and then they get assassinated. The Bush family, apparently Clinton family, into the drug trade in Arkansas. So these people are into these nefarious activities. Make no mistake about it, plenty of evidence out there, plenty of books. But I did find Dope Inc. on the internet, so it's arriving soon. And that their opium trade was a special privilege that most other American businesses did not even try to compete with. So make no mistake about it. These occult organizations that control our politicians and our country and the banking system and the education system and the medical establishment, pharmaceuticals and everything, are bringing us the drugs, destroying our youth, even with the mind control cartoons and TV programming and stuff they teach them in school. 6- and 7-year-old kids learning about homosexuality and stuff. It's insane. I think we're living in the Twilight Zone. I've had friends of mine mention that many times. All right. And that their opium trade was a special privileges that most other people didn't have. Why? Dope Inc. doesn't say, but I know that this is it because the Committee of 300 decides such things. Not free enterprise. So there are some secret elites behind the scenes. And remember, these people are in charge of the NASA and all these advanced technologies, the installation of microwave transmitters, dumping chemicals in the sky, and so much more. They are taking our world from us right now, reducing the wealth and power of the middle class, which is all intentional. And if they're going to have their global world order, that's what they have to do. And the more we wake up, the more they have to enforce some kinds of secrecy. American furs yielded 1,000% in those days, so they were making 1,000% profit. The privilege of fur trade was a pot of gold, so to speak, that the Committee of 300 gave Astor. So can you imagine all these Yiddish Jews and other people into the Kabbalah, Zionists, given different portions of America and industries to take over and control? Like Tex Mars sent to me in a letter with the international corporations, all had Jewish CEOs. Can you just imagine 500,000 plus or minus people, financed, ruthless, uncaring, believing in demon beings, practicing sacrificing children and other adults into this witchcraft, given the power and the money and the tools of deception to take over everything? No wonder they crashed the economic system in the United States 8 times since 1913 when they took over the USA money supply after not having control of it for the previous 50 years. They had control of it before that. They even had a couple wars to gain control. That's why Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. He wanted America to print its own money, one of the reasons. So like I said, Abraham Lincoln, John Kennedy, and many more. When you wake up, you're a threat to these people. The privilege of fur trade was a pot of gold, so to speak, that the Committee of 300 gave Astor. And it can only have happened because the Astor family of Waldorf was already part of the principal satanic bloodlines. So people don't believe in the devil, demons, but they'll believe in Palladians and Anunnaki aliens and Vedas and Avians and Corey Good and David Wilcock material. And Stephen Greer sending me an email, the Serious Disclosure Project. They're meeting on the beach in California. They're going to do some mantras magic words, and the aliens are going to appear. The Illuminati members of the Astor family today use their influence to help those of the Illuminati in their dope trade. So these people from this material I've read so far have been involved with the satanic occult groups, Freemasons, Illuminati, etc., princes and kings and elite families, all organized, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. This is 2019, January 25. A lot of predictions that they're going to pull the trigger, that 2019 is going to be an interesting year, maybe even more interesting in 2020. And a lot of young people today feel kind of hopeless and helpless about these situations. A lot of people want to get off the grid, want to go hide. I've learned you can't hide. I sold all my holdings in Florida, used the money to finance my 14 years of research. Cost a lot of money to live. Buying all these books and sharing material and reading every day, every week, every month since 2005. Think about that. You spend 30 years, almost 40 years accumulating maybe $500,000 worth of stuff, boats, motorcycle, and houses and land and stocks and everything. Then you spend the next 15 years using whatever you accumulated to support yourself so you could bring about these videos and research trying to figure out WTH. It wasn't a Christian crusade I was on or anything like that, or an anti-Jewish thing. I just noticed, I was paying attention, that something was wrong. I looked up Alan Greenspan, and I found an article on him where he had a meeting before Congress, and he admitted that there was intentional, creative, economic destruction going on. They were doing it on purpose. Alan Greenspan. Look it up. Economic destruction. And he said it, creative economic destruction. I printed it out. I've got it in my boxes of printed out research material, which would stack over 10 feet tall if I would have stacked it up behind me. Even 911. What about the first bombing in the lobby? Was it 1989? The Twin Tower bombing in the lobby? And if you know anything about situations like that or fires, you know that after the fire, you have to get an inspection to make sure everything's okay before you can get insurance or a certificate for occupancy from the city. So after they had the fire bombing in one of the buildings, they did an inspection, and somebody discovered that the columns inside the metal joints and support structures was deteriorating, and that building was going to fall down on its own. And apparently there's other information out there that the buildings were laden with the asbestos, and it would have cost the owners $2 billion each to dismantle them from the top down. Because of where they were, they couldn't use demolitions, the traditional way of bringing down a building. And insurance doesn't cover faulty architectural designs, so they would have had to pay that out of their own pockets. And insurance companies like AIG paid for it, and others. And after 2001, of course, we had the 2008 stock market collapse. They had to recoup all those billions paid to the owners of those buildings who brought us 911 and got the insurance money. Did you know that? So much we don't know. So the buildings were part of the plan, bringing them down. And it served a dual purpose. The people bought the story hook, line, and sinker, and they were able to destroy all those countries in the Middle East. Well, you can look up plans for a greater Israel and see all the maps. I've shown it in many videos. President Donald Trump being elected, and you can go look up pictures of the Donald Trump coin where he's overlaid with King Cyrus, the last king, to help the Jews rebuild King Solomon's temple. And like it says in the Bible, Revelation 2.9, 3.9, and in Jeremiah and many other places in the Bible, these people belong to the cult of Moloch, the cult of Baal, synagogue of Satan, Lucifer, Osiris, Isis, Horus, all-seeing eye, and the dollar bill. I guess I can say these things over and over and over and over and over like a broken record. Wonder if anybody's listening out there. Anybody out there? Just having a little fun here because this information is so bizarre. His German heritage. The process of 400 years looks like this. So 400-year process. Listen to this. Various satanic families moved into the southwest German area in the late medieval time period where witchcraft associated with Diana was practiced. Witchcraft associated with Diana was practiced. So I'm reading this book, noticing the names, noticing these cults. So I had to go back to the Fritz Springmeier's book so I could make this video before we can all understand what we are talking about. The Kabbalah. Look at the person laying on the ground in this picture. Look at the skull faces on this body. Cult of Diana. Some people think the pictures are funny. They sacrifice people. They kill people. They bring us wars. They have serious plans for this satanic global world order. I suppose people need to wake up and quick. This began to alarm various elements of the Roman Catholic Church. So we had the Inquisition. All the Jews were banished from Spain. And if they converted to Christianity, they could stay. So they did it so they could stay because they had their money and power. But they really didn't. They still practiced the cult of Diana, the mystery religion of Babylon, Moloch worship, Baal worship, satanic synagogue of Satan, sacrificing people. That's why there was so much problems in all these countries. They would find the dead bodies of the children. And you could recognize by the way the bodies were killed that it was one of these satanic rituals. They punched little holes all in these bodies and had buckets underneath to drain the blood so they could drink it to get some kind of satanic euphoric high and communicate with the demonic world or bring beings into this world. Like Rabbi Marvin Antelman wrote in his 2 books, To Eliminate the Opate, that means to eliminate your belief in God. And in Hitler's diary, apparently they sacrificed a young Munich gypsy man with a young lady laying on another altar so they could bring forth some demonic being to impregnate this young lady to bring about some kind of a satanic leader to the world. According to Rabbi Marvin Antelman's book, the leader of the Jewish Congress, who exposed all these things I'm talking about, and I made numerous videos on his books, and I'll be looking at those books again. Series number 43, I believe. 44. Rabbi Marvin Antelman, leader of the American Jewish Congress. Remember, in the Jewish world, you have the Torah Jews and you have the Talmud Jews. Apparently, the Torah Jews are opposed to the Zionism synagogue of Satan Talmud Jews. So even in the Jewish community, there are people who descended from the Jewish world who prefer to believe in God and not join these cults of Moloch and Baal, synagogue of Satan. I realize it's confusing for some people, but I made a lot of videos on these topics. The Astor family provided leadership in the covens. Witches have 13 witches in a coven. In the Heidelberg area. So they were all over Germany. You suppose Hitler knew that? Hitler was into the occult, Dual Society, Vril Society. You suppose he had a reason for getting all the Jewish people shipped to Poland and out of the country and in prison? Not in gas chambers. But that's not what they want you to believe. Witchcraft spread virtually all over southwest Germany. Now remember, in 1500 they were banned from Spain, and right up until 1600 they were banned from Italy, France, Britain, all those countries. They were fleeing to Holland, who was welcoming them. and Poland and Russian areas who were tolerating them, welcoming them. But as soon they wore out their welcome, and the Polish people were seriously distraught and angry. The Russians were starting to police them in the 1800s, 1700s. So they were fleeing to Germany and found a safe haven. Even their Garden of Eden. They were getting wealthy and rich and gained a lot of power. But they were annoyed with the German people, because the German people were paying attention and scolding them for the things they were doing, and they did not like that. So Germany had to be destroyed. 2 world wars. And after World War I, because they were policed and patrolled in Russia, they had to be destroyed too, and they had the Russian Revolution, which was not a revolution. It was an invasion. 100 million Christians and other good people killed over 10 to 20 years. In between World War I and World War II, an Iron Curtain was up. After World War II, the world gave Russia, behind the Iron Curtain, half of the Balkans and half of Germany and a bunch of other countries to expand the Iron Curtain after World War II. And World War II was because they didn't want Germany to expand, so they gave it all to the Bolshevik Jewish communists, into this cult of Diana and other cults of Moloch and Baal, demons and gods with human sacrifices. And it's alive and well today. I read this material, it gets a little bit concerning, to say the least. Many old records from about 1500 to 1650 show that witchcraft was being practiced throughout the area. So no wonder they had problems. Now, if you point out who these people are, and the Shehedrin, the group of Congress, the religious leaders in Israel today, the ones 2,000 years ago who decided Jesus Christ needed to be crucified, and these people laughing on videos you can go watch that say that they never believed in Jesus and they never will, and they don't know why the foolish Christians do today. But they have legislation passed in the United States called Noahide laws, and to believe in a false deity is heresy punishable by beheading. There you go. You know what's planned. So witchcraft back then spread all over southwest Germany. What is witchcraft? That would be the cult of Baal, cult of Moloch, cult of Diana, and all these secret societies and their occult religions, and the Kabbalah, and the Talmud, and the Zohar. And this is going to be the global world religion. Make no mistake. You can look at the evidence. You can take this video, take a notebook, take notes, look up everything I said. I encourage anybody. Find one thing negative. Go look at my 600 videos. Try to find one thing negative in 600 videos, people disputing what I've been saying. You can't. I've looked. I rarely get a thumbs down. Look at all the comments. I have almost 400 pages in my book put together from people's comments. I intend to get that book published and get it out to people. You can't find anybody saying that I'm saying things that are not true. A lot of people are adding stuff to it. And that's where I'm continuing my education. And on YouTube, they're banning some of the videos where it's illegal to talk about this stuff in Europe. Deleting World Revolution by Nestor Webster, published in 1921, detailing the Freemasons, Illuminati, and Jewish participation in the revolution in France, where they executed the king, and 10 months later, and Marie Antoinette, and a whole bunch of other wealthy landowners were all executed. Who do you suppose got all those properties and money and wealth? Who do you suppose gets it in all these countries and all these wars? Now you know. When they crash the system, they're taking, harvesting, a Jewish satanic harvest. And not all Jewish people. Go look up Yahoo images. Put in Zionism. See all the Jewish rabbis with their beards and black outfits with long signs in the city New York streets, protesting Zionism, saying Zionism is not Judaism. In the Bible, Revelation 2.9, 3.9, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Read Jeremiah in the Old Testament. I've never really been a fan or ever read really the Old Testament. It's going to be interesting for me to make a video on Jeremiah. I've been reading it. Oh my. back to Fritz Springmeier's book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, trying to explore the backgrounds of some characters that are mentioned in this book, so when I make the next video, moving forward, probably 249 in my series, you'll know who these characters are, what they're into, and they control the world, and the things they've done are all mentioned in the Anglo-American establishment. But you got to realize what they're doing behind the scenes, like Benjamin Franklin, Jefferson, the Clintons, the Bushes, Roosevelt. They control our world. They control the economic system, the education system, the medical system, the communication system, everything. And the religious systems, they've taken it all over. In the 1920s, when they had communist congressional hearings, trials, they admitted they were going to infiltrate the religious systems and destroying everything. They want to bring a death to Christianity. And they want to bring us this cult of Diane and these other cults of Moloch and Baal. They put the statue, the archway of Baal in New York and London and all those other symbols. Shiva, the goddess of destruction, on the Empire State Building. I've gone over so many books on this topic. So it's not about Jewish people. It's about people into these satanic cults. I guess the demons have rights too, and should have freedoms to walk among us and sacrifice us and abuse and use us. It needs to become legal, and they'll pass legislation making it happen. Go watch the Hunger Games movie and so many others. They're telling us. Many old records from about 1500 to 1650 show that witchcraft was being practiced throughout the area. So these people were the people that were destroying countries, even the United States. Even General Ulysses Grant during the Civil War banned the Jews, i.e. these people, into these occult organizations from the Tennessee territories, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Louisiana, all that. Why would General Ulysses Grant, a famous general, ban those people from those territories? He knew Civil War in the United States was all instigated and controlled by these people. French, after the French Revolution, which was taken over by these people, Illuminati, Freemasons, and people into the Kabbalah, Zionism, witchcraft, they were over here in the United States supporting the South, trying to get it to separate from the Union, because they had a plan to divide the country and take the spoils, which they did. All those wealthy people with all those lands and plantations and wealth and power, decent Christian people, they probably lost everything. They were probably all murdered. They have statues to these characters all over the South now, who were probably into the occult, claiming, showing that they own and control everything. And there's not a darn thing we can do about it, they think. There'll be a price to pay when they get into the other world. And in the end of the day, not trying to be a religious preacher here, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to find out WTH, what's going on. But I'm convinced the spiritual world is real. These evil entities are real. At the end of the day, God wins. In the meantime, what do people do? What kind of decisions do we make? Do some people act like cowards and watch people get killed? What about if they bring down this economic collapse or collapse the grid, the electric grid? How will people behave? Like vicious animals? Or will they unite and take care of each other? So maybe God does have a plan. You ever think about that? Separate the wheat from the chaff. All right, continuing on with this emotional outburst. Who wants to see our world destroyed? I'm no saint. I'm a normal man. My reputation was, they used to call me the party boy. I was always water skiing, surfing, sailing, Cocoa Beach, Melbourne, Florida, working at a major aerospace company for 10 years. I have an electronic technology degree. Electronic engineering technician. Worked on the space shuttle, F-18 jet, B-1B bombers, satellites, and space systems. But I got tired of working in a vault with a security clearance behind a fences and going through a turnstile with an eye watching me. And if I was 10 minutes late, I had to report to personnel, find out why I was late if I got to work at 8:05 instead of 8 o'clock. That's when I went into business for myself, business consulting. And I've been doing that since 2019. Excuse me. 2090. Getting tired of speaking. So back to the book. I've been in business for myself 10, 20, 9 years, 29 years, business consultant. So I pay the bills. About real estate and businesses and things like that. The Astors did not have the position of wealth and power that accorded their position in the late 1700s of occult leadership. So they weren't quite where they wanted to be, but they were into the occult. The New World presented opportunities. Oh my, can you see this with the occult back then and the New World and all the crazy things that went on back then? People with guns shooting people in the street. People living in rural areas probably being burned out and everything stolen. We see all the movies. It had to be quite interesting back then. But how much has changed now? Can you really walk down a dark city street in Chicago or in New York and many other streets with the homeless people and everything else rising, middle class disappearing? Are they trying to bring us chaos and anarchy again? As President George Bush Jr. said, out of chaos and anarchy will come the New World Order, a rule of law. This global world order will be their laws, the Noahide laws, banning Christianity even. Free speech. Can't talk about Zionism or Synagogue of Satan and these people into the occult. They have a right to abduct little children and sacrifice them. It's their religion, their God. Come on. Is that what they're going to convince people to go along with? You know, I'd like to think that we're a civilized world now, but I see what's been going on since I've been doing my research and all the death and suffering that's been going on. Unbelievable! And these people with unimaginable billions of dollars and their evil goings on behind the scenes and all the satanic rituals and symbols they show us. Super Bowl halftime shows with Madonna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, and so many others. It's clearly satanic rituals. Go watch an Indiana Jones movie, watch the ritual, go to a Super Bowl halftime show with Madonna in it in the past 10 years, and watch the two rituals and convince yourself. Go watch the Bohemian Grove where Alex Jones and one of his video cameramen went in there. And that cremation of care ritual where they throw a baby in a fire, grown men, our politicians in long robes, bringing in gay men for some kind of satanic homosexual ritual. It's just too much to believe. Pedophilia accusations during the 2016 election. Even Jordan Maxwell saying, even around Hollywood, to somebody, Reese, the other day in a video, that they're sacrificing children every day. And there's accusations all over the world, exposure about this. Child trafficking, pedophilia, and so much other bizarre stuff. I just wonder, when or will people wake up? Maybe it's not when, will. Will these evil people and their assassins take out everybody who's trying to get the word out? Will God intervene like he did before the Great Flood? How bad would it have to been back then for God to warn Noah to build the ark? For the Hopi Indians to be warned that a great flood was coming and build tunnels in the mountains and the ground. In Ecuador, all over the world, there's evidence of these ruins where people were building shelters prior to the great flood. So make no mistake, whoever was behind it wanted a remnant of the human race to survive. And where are we today? Why did Atlantis sink? What kind of earth disturbances happened back then? What kind of evil were they into? Go look on the internet. Look up these stories where they were into this genetic engineering and even creating monster slave types of beings for sex slaves and worker slaves. Apparently, when the Atlanteans went to Egypt, the Egyptians were horrified by what they were doing. They had wars, and they had to come up with treaties, and the Atlanteans had to cease and desist making these monsters. We see in mythology, half man, half human, animal. Makes you wonder, is there some truth to that stuff? And then people today want to believe in the aliens and UFOs. Give it up. It's all about these cults of Diana, cults of Moloch, cults of Baal, demonic beings, fallen angels, like it says in the Bible, demons, Satan, Lucifer. And if we all wake up to it and talk to God, we can be protected. Even in the Bible it says, "He who seeks refuge in me, I shall be thy shield." Something like that. So there is security and protection. You just got to know where to go to look. That's why Rabbi Marvin Antelman wrote that book, 2 books, Volume 1, Volume 2, to eliminate the opaque. And many of those other books I've gone over. 248 authors and 600 videos. A lot of people risk their lives trying to get the truth out. People saw the truth. It's documented throughout history. It's documented in the Bible. It's documented in encyclopedias. It's documented in all these occult books you can go find on used book sites. But don't buy into that stuff and believe that they're the good guys and the Christians and other God believers and family believers are the bad guys or the haters. Don't buy it. Please don't buy it. Is this a desperate attempt on my part to try to save the world? And I'm not the only one making videos and sharing this stuff, and they get ridiculed for it. You got your people, Alex Jones out there, David Icke, and so many others. Richie from Boston, No More News. I could go on here. I've watched different videos. Bill Deagle, Deborah Travers, Dane Wigington. The list is long, but you have to know how to recognize the truth. And then some people give you the consciousness rising that you are God. Don't believe in God. Don't believe in the Christianities. They're all evil. It's a new age. That stuff's old news. Don't buy it. Got to be careful. I like to keep it simple. I can think I make a few decisions about right and wrong, although, again, I'm not perfect. I go out on Friday night, listen to a local band, have a couple beers, IPAs. I live in a town known for more breweries than any other town in America. And everybody, a lot of women are dressed in these tight clothing that leaves nothing to the imagination. It's a very tempting world. You got to keep check on your mind. When I grew up at the bus stop, they were smoking marijuana. I was in the Army during the Vietnam War. I didn't go to Vietnam. 3 years. I've seen a lot. I've sailed and boated and traveled, and I've had a very interesting life, thank God. I've made mistakes, just like the rest of us. But I too can wake up. So can anybody else. And there's no place to run and hide. I do encourage people to talk to other people. Pay attention to these threats about an EMP and collapsing the systems. They're not putting those warnings out there with Anonymous and Q for nothing. It's all social conditioning. Women's marches, white pride parades and gay pride parades and Black Lives Matter. They're organizing all these things. They're playing us for fools. Hegelian dialectic. Divide and conquer. They're good at it. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. And we buy it hook, line, and sinker. The Astors did not have the position of wealth and power that accorded their position in the late 1700s of occult leadership. In Germany, England, and France, there was no way to climb the social ladder. However, the New World presented opportunities. Oh boy, if these evil people had just not come to America, where would we be today? So when America was being discovered and populated with pilgrims from all over the world, You had two forces coming here, and the symbols are all over this country. You had the occult Freemason forces, satanic forces, vying for power and control. And you had the Christian forces and other decent people trying to come to a land. And look back at history, all the death and murders. And the satanic people don't have any kind of restrictions on how they can gain their power and wealth at the expense of everybody else. Just saying. Where am I wrong? However, the New World presented opportunities. The Astors sent 2 sons to prepare the way for John Jacob, one to England and one to America. And then sent John Jacob, their most promising, brightest son, to the New World. While in America, the Astor family helped the Satanic elite headquarters in England to maintain its control over America. So did America escape British control forever? Apparently not. And we had all these satanic forces, secret societies among us, building all these Freemasonic lodges everywhere, and other occult organizations, even witchcraft covens, creating the porn industry and so much more, drug industry, bringing us all the rock and roll. And I like rock and roll, come on. But I didn't know. The albums, when you see those satanic symbols on them or play the records backwards and it sounds like the devil speaking, it's out there. You can look it up. You can verify it. So what happens if you do verify it? Are you supposed to go, oh, well, I don't care. Apathy is the way I'm going to go. Ignorance is bliss. I'm going to go to the party. All I can say is if we don't wake up, there will not be a party. There will be fences, there will be rations, there will be death. Generations to come will say, why didn't the people wake up? Having come from Germany, and also due to Satanism being secret, John Jacob Astor's help given to pro-British elite moves were more difficult to suspect. So the British elite had a motivation to take back America, control of America. But they had to deceive we the people and not let us know they were doing it. And that they had all these Satanists in this country, into all these cults of Diana and Moloch and Baal and all this other stuff, who apparently had taken over the British government after they executed that king in 1660. And Cromwell, his name sounds kind of sinister, brought all the Jewish people from Denmark and Holland area into Britain, changed the law. They took over the banking system and the parliament. And that's what we've been dealing with. Not the British people. After establishing themselves as aristocrats in America, the tribe of Astors moved to England, where because of their high social position in America, no one questioned the Queen bestowing titles of nobility on them. All along the process, people with Illuminati connections opened doors for the Astors. So the Illuminati organization, secret societies, control the politics in America. Even in the 1800s, ex-president John Quincy Adams wrote that book I made a video on, Letters on Freemasonry, where the Freemasons, Illuminati, these occult people, swore that never again would anybody that was a true, sincere Christian wind up in high level of political office in America. And they have the power. They know how to eliminate competition. You can't get elected to these offices without a lot of money. They got the money. And they have the power to discredit people, kill people. You can't win unless you're one of them. If we can agree on anything, let's all agree on that. Then we know what we're up against. At this point, it needs to be pointed out that there were ties between the following groups: English royalty, English Satanism, English Freemasonry, and German witchcraft, and the Italian black nobility. Of course, they went by names like CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, created by them, the Mafia, and of course in some of these intelligence services and high-level police stations. Hopefully we still have some good people, even in the IRS or other organizations, in the Supreme Court and politicians. Hopefully we have some good people who are fighting for we people in America. Regrettably, I voted for President Donald Trump, but he seems to certainly be part of the Zionist plans for global world order. He even has his face on a coin, and so much more evidence. We're all being deceived. So Fritz Springmeier says, and I'm giving total credit for this information for reading a couple pages out of Fritz Springmeier's book. Big, thick book. Probably expensive to get now. If you can find one, go on Tex Mar's website. Maybe you can find one or use books. But it's worth it. I'm reading only 2 or 3 pages out of 600 pages in this book of just one family, one organization. And then I'll be making a video on this book mentioning the behind-the-scenes political control and organizations they created, Rhodes Scholars and other things, secret societies involving Clinton and other people we know. But we need to know what their religious affiliations are, their satanic religious relations. If you don't know that, you don't have the whole picture. Then you know the whys. So who do you suppose these corporations work for? Profit for the satanic wealthy elite. And they take away authority from the government. Nobody's responsible for these corporations. And they're run by evil forces that will kill anybody who gets in the way. They know how to destroy competition. They make movies on this stuff. Corporate raiders and all these other things. They put toxins in the foods. It's almost too horrible to describe. And they're installing all the microwave transmitters, dumping chemicals in the sky. So the connections here: English royalty, English Satanism, English Freemasonry, German witchcraft, and the Italian black nobility. And Fritz Springmeier is a smarter man than me. Did a lot of research way before I got into this, as well as many other people. Bill Cooper. I have taken the liberty as author of digressing to give some examples of these connections. Although on the surface this doesn't directly pertain to the Astors, it does. When one paints in a bigger panorama of what is happening, so when you look at the broad view of everything, of what is happening in the occult world is a huge part of all this stuff in the global world order, in the microwave transmission systems, and AI, artificial intelligence, beast computers, 666 symbols everywhere, 666. Of that blazing star, and then one sees a blazing star streak across the panorama. Then the real history of that blazing star is given by tracking its voyage through the panorama. However, the history books have intentionally hidden the significance of so many of the players and groups that lay along the tracks of that blazing streak. So if you go look at history, last 300 years, watch my videos, get some of these books, you can plot all of this stuff. All the wars, all the death, all the theft. Definitely an anti-Christian effort. All right, it says here, his Masonic career, page 28. In 1784, John Jacob Astor, I, came to America after a stopover in London, England. Although the story is that he came to America penniless, he soon joined the Masonic Lodge and within 2 to 3 years had become the master of the Hall and Lodge number 8 in New York City. The Hall and Lodge is a prominent lodge in that many of its members have good connections to the Illuminati elite. An example of just Lodge 8 member is Archibald Russell, one of the people behind the Jehovah's Witnesses, and so much more. 1811-1871, whose father was president of a real hotbed of Illuminati action, the Royal Society of Edinburgh, for many years. Astor took Freemasonry seriously. Governor DeWitt Clinton. So how much do you think that President Bill Clinton is related to this Clinton? Rose unusually fast in the degrees, but the German immigrant, John Jacob, who talked at times as if he had marbles in his mouth, was not far behind him. Astor eventually caught up to Clinton, and he got the fur trade. DeWitt Clinton's uncle George Clinton, who served as Jefferson's vice president, so there was a Clinton vice president, was also a member of that Hall and Lodge number 8. Archibald Russell of the Russell family, that's in this book, as well as 2 members of the elite Livingston family, were members of this lodge too at the time. So just like George Bush Jr. and John Kerry and so many more coming from the Skull and Bones, you get the picture. I think people watching my video and doing research are not dense or stupid. I think a lot of us get the picture. So I'm probably preaching to the choir if you're watching my video. We're not getting the information to the people who want to know the truth or don't know anything. When this thing happens, like 911 the last time, they'll say, why couldn't we see this coming? The Livingston family was participating in the Committee of 300 at the time. One of my Masonic reference books states that business at the Hall and Lodge number 8 was conducted in German. If so, why were all these other men involved with it apparently had English as their mother tongue? In 1788, 200 years ago, 230 years ago, not that long, Astor was a master of the Masonic Lodge number 8. This is rather interesting considering Astor was not bilingual, could not speak English when he arrived in America, and supposedly was very poor. So these lodges were, I guess, houses of the synagogue of Satan, Kabbalah, sorcery. And they controlled the politicians and politics, and the money and the wealth. None of us suspecting this. People growing up, going to school, having careers, not knowing why we have economic collapses again and again and again. And they take that money and develop in laboratories things like AIDS, viruses, and plagues, and test it on us. I made videos on those books. Leonard Horowitz, AIDS, Ebola. John Cole, that they were dumping chemicals in the subway stations in New York. So I made videos on all these books, and so much more. John Jacob Astor was always very famous for being cold-hearted, antisocial, a man who didn't have charm, wit, or grace. This quote comes even from a relative of the DuPont family, who wrote sympathetic biography entitled The Astor Family. If this man lacked social graces and was so cold and was so poor during his 5 years in the United States, why did he rise to such prominence in Freemasonry? So apparently these organizations have an ulterior motive. They control politics and leadership in a lot of other government offices. Certainly not because of his social grace, which he totally lacked. For instance, one time in life, at a meal given for elites, when his hands got dirty at the table, he reached over and used the shirt of the man beside him to wipe his hands. A lovely guy. But see, that's what these elites do to us. They don't care about we the people. the homeless, people living in cardboard boxes in LA and other places in the city, the disappearing middle class. And if they've taken us this far, where do you think they're going to stop? And house prices now are off the chart. When's it going to collapse again? How bad will it be? Will it be the last time? Shouldn't we talk about these things? Shouldn't we prepare for these things? Because none of this has to happen. Nobody should have to be forced to pay $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 more for a residence. Imagine some young person. And then when they get out of college, they got to pay that loan back for 20 years. There's some really evil people behind this reality we live in. For a man who is extremely busy and extremely rich, John Jacob Astor I's Masonic career refutes the lie that Freemasonry is simply a social club. Here is a record of some of his Masonic activities. He was Master of the Hall and Lodge, 1788. Grand Treasurer of the Grand Lodge of New York, 1801. Junior Grand Warden on 2 occasions, 1798, 1801. Secretary of the Commandery, then called the Encampments. For a busy man, he kept himself even busier with his Masonic brothers. His wealth. William Backhouse, the American representative of the London Backhouse family, and John Jacob's brother Henry were 2 of John Jacob's initial contacts in the New World. Soon John Jacob had met all types of people involved in the New York occult world. Synagogue of Satan. So again, I'm reminded after World War I and the elite who controlled New York, the banking system, World War I, they had their president, Woodrow Wilson, tricked America into the war. Germany lost because they betrayed Germany with the Balfour Agreement. Balfour is mentioned in this book. And he was a crypto-Jewish person too, one of these elite people. They all took Christian-sounding names. And they were having barracks and training facilities all over Europe for these Yiddish Jews after World War I, shipping them into New York City, financing them, and they were focused on taking over American businesses all across the country. They knew how to take out competition. They were into the occult, Satanism. Murdering people and all kinds of other activities were not above them. How do you compete with that? Then, after World War I, a bunch of them got together, trained in New York City and other major areas, elite Zionist, Synagogue of Satan, occult leaders, got into Russia. Russia never seen it coming after World War I. Went to the Tsar's house and abducted him and his family and assassinated everybody. Police, military from these countries, probably even from the U.S., over there guarding the train stations and everything else. And for the next, then they had the Iron Curtain, the blackout over Russia after World War I. So World War I was accomplished so that the communist, Zionist, occult organizations could take over Russia, that vast continent. And apparently in the next 10, 20 years, they killed up to 100 million people, as is documented. I think a Israeli major newspaper admits it was 25 million. And it was predominantly Christian people destroying the Christian churches, not the Jewish people or the Jewish temples. And I will be fair in my research. Apparently, if you were a Jewish judge at that time, and you were practicing any mercy on the Christians or people, you weren't vicious. So if you were a little bit merciful, these people would drag you off the judge's chair and execute the Jewish people, the judges, if they weren't vicious and merciless. So it was a controlled thing, this Iron Curtain, this communism in Russia after World War I. And what happened after World War II? Because they didn't want Germany and the associated local countries to gather together to form a economic bloc or whatever for security. They brought us World War II. And then after World War II, they gave these communist, Zionist, Bolshevik, occult people half of Western, or I should say Eastern Europe, half of Germany and all those other countries in the Balkans, and put up the Iron Curtain closer to Europe. So what's wrong with that picture? They had World War II because they didn't want Germany to expand, but they gave all that land and countries to the communists, occultists, cult of Diana, Baal, Baalim, Moloch, cults. Well, my 2 hours is up. Wish I could just keep on going and share more of this, but, you know, I believe other people are responsible too. You go online and find this book. You could probably spend a half a year reading it and checking everything out, but Fritz Springmeier seems to be right on target. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.